Okay, today's training.
Sorry.
Oh my goodness. Okay, all these interruptions. I think we got it now. I think we got it. So, welcome to today's training. Today's training is about showing up and going up. And I'm so excited to be here with Miranda. And really, today's training is about how to maximize your opportunities with Epicure, whether they be trainings or events, and some tips and tricks on how to make the most of them as well. So Miranda and I have met a few times over the years. We haven't seen each other in a while, but we got to know each other by attending Epicure events and trainings, and also virtual and in person. So yeah, so that's how you make connections, and it's so beautiful. So I'm so excited to have you here. I'd love everyone to comment on our recording today, and if you have any questions or what you are hoping to get out of our training today. And the first thing I'm going to do is get Miranda to introduce who she is and a little bit about her epic story.
Awesome. I just had a flashback quickly, Benny, that as soon as you said like all of the events that we went to. But do you remember Dominican? I remember having breakfast with you like every morning on that trip that we earned to Dominican, and like the beautiful eggs that we had. Anyways, I just had a flashback of us sitting there in the sun having breakfast together. I wish we were there right now, but that's okay. This will do.
You have your little like beach in the background there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hole in my house. That's what Hornpain looks like. Okay, so my name is Miranda. I'm an executive director with Epicure. I've been with Epicure now for 9.5 years. Yeah, I started for a very different, the reason I started is a lot different than why I'm still here. And I think a lot of people say that, right? When I first started, I had 2 kids. I have 3 now. My girls were 6 months old and 18 months old, like just less than a year apart. And I just felt kind of like a crazy person. I was so tired. I was so tired of doing the same thing all the time. Like I loved my girls, of course, with my whole heart, but I was just ready and looking for something to do just for me, kind of like a hobby, but also maybe I was like kind of open to making money, but I thought that would only happen through sales. Yeah, so I started as a hobby and it quickly grew. Like I am in a very small town. So I live in a town called Hornpain. We have 900 people here, maybe 900. There's no Tim Hortons or like restaurants. We have a chip stand though. And we have 1 gas station. And right now, gas is the most expensive here than anywhere else in Ontario. That's what we're known for at the moment. But yeah, super, super small town. So I thought, okay, I'm joining. I don't know how much I can do with this business, but like maybe Epicure will be these little tasting parties that we used to call them, will be like the entertainment for Hornpain. And it kind of did become that. I was having cooking classes, really high sales, but never had I ever thought of growing my team. And Tara Larson, who's my direct upline, and as well as Benny's, she phoned me once and she's like, okay, who are you? Where's Hornpain? And like, why are your sales so great? And I kind of explained to her about Hornpain. And she's like, well, how about you grow your team too? Like, imagine what could happen if you did. And I just didn't. I was like, no, like, I'm not going to grow my team in a 900 population town. And so I kind of left it at that. But then she kept calling me and she kept asking me, I think she knew she needed to get me to conference. So yeah, Tara got me to conference finally. And I was like, I had all the excuses in the world. I was not going. Like I said, I live in a tiny town. I don't have any family here except my husband and my kids. So I have no one to watch the kids. So I made that as my excuse. My husband is a railroader. He works for the rail and he's gone. We never know his schedule. He's just gone. And when he's gone, it's like 40 hours at a time. So what was I going to do? I just told her, like, how am I going to do this? Anyways, she told me to throw away the excuses and just do it. And I found a babysitter and it cost me money and that kind of sucked. But in the long run, like it paid itself off. I think a month later, I got back home from conference. A month later, I was a leader. So it kind of propelled me that way. Yeah, it kind of crazy though, like how you can go from just that mindset, I'm joining just for the discount, or I'm joining just as a hobby, and how it can quickly grow. So that's a little bit about my story.
I love it. And as you were talking about our Dominican trip, I think we met the first time at a leadership summit, but I think where I really got to know you was through the incentive trips.
Yeah.
And just so you know, like, it's so amazing because I can remember that I brought my sister and you brought your husband, Derek, and he is one of my favorite Epicure husbands. He's so supportive and so sweet. And he and my sister got along and we had lots to chat about. And so it's so great, right? Like, it's just so cool how that happens from all these different avenues. And my sister was from Whitehorse, and so all
That's
over the place.
right.
So awesome. So my next question for you is, and you touched on it a little bit, but you had a really big shift in your business. You were kind of comfortable for a while, a long while, and you had a shift in your business. So what was the moment, or what was the thing that had you be like, I'm going to grow and take your business to the next level?
Okay. So I had a really big motivator for me anyways. You're right. I was super comfortable at leader level. I just kind of coasted along. I was able to maintain it, work a full-time job. I had my 2 girls, working full-time as a school secretary, and that was fine and dandy. I didn't really love my work environment though, I'll say that. And then I got pregnant again with my son. And I loved, like, once he was born, I loved every single second of that mat leave. And I dreaded, like, I kind of wish that I could go back and have him as that in that 1 year and not just be like dreading, oh, he turned 1 month old. No, that means I only have 11 months left in my mat leave. Like, it was really sad. But right at the end of my mat leave, I was starting back at the school in September. It was mid-August, and we were at conference once again. All these things happen at conference for me, I swear. And Candace Trupeau was on the stage, and she was telling this like super inspiring story about taking leaps of faith and all that. And it was in my seat, I started sobbing, like ugly crying. My team remembers this. They were sitting beside me and like, are you okay? Like, I was loud. I was interrupting Candace on stage pretty much. I'm going to cry thinking about it. And I ran out of the room and I went to the window where I had better reception, and I called my husband and I'm like, I'm quitting my job. I am quitting my full-time job. He's like, we just bought an SUV yesterday. Are you serious? I'm like, I'm doing it. He's like, well, okay, if you need to. And I said, like, I need to. I can't go back to that. I need to be home with my son. I want to be the one to watch him grow up every day. And it was from that moment that, like, I that night I sent my 2-week notice to my boss. Like, I just quit my job. And I knew, okay, I did a really big thing. What can I do now to make sure that I live up to this? Right. Like, I was making about $24,000 a year as a school secretary. And that's all. I was like, just make $24,000 a year, Miranda. How can I do that? So I divided that by the months and figured out how many cooking classes I needed to have every month in order to make $24,000 a year. And that's what did it. That's right after that, I had earned my first incentive trip, because I remember telling myself, okay, it's way more fun to try to earn an incentive trip than it is to try to make a certain amount of money. I was like, at least I've got this like vision of a beach and all that. And so I went for it and never looked back. Like, I think every year after that, my income doubled just from that one decision, sitting there at that conference saying, I'm quitting my full-time job.
And I think I remember, was that the Doubt Dragons speech where she was talking about your Doubt Dragons?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. I think that is one of my favorite things about conference. Like, I get emotional thinking about it, or any event where we get to hear other people's stories, that they stay with us. And I know you and I have both had the opportunity to speak at conference, and I still have people come up to me, and I spoke at conference like 5 years ago, and they'll still say, Benny, you inspired me to be a leader. So I think the community aspect is so huge. And for me, I had just become a new leader, or had I become a leader yet? I don't remember. I think I was on my way to becoming a leader. I actually met Candace Trupeau. I went to Vancouver. Epicure was having like a business day, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go. And Maverick was, I think, about 8 months old. And let me tell you, going to Vancouver, the ferry, I was like pumping milk when I wasn't like there. Same thing with my first conference. But that first business day in Vancouver, I had my ugly cry. And it was Melissa Lim, who was standing at the front sharing about like she said, there's just 4 words. Your kids are watching you. And I was just like, yeah, like I want something more. I want something more. And then same thing. I went to conference. Maverick had just turned 1 year old. We both know Nancy Murray, and she was one of my roommates. And I woke up, I'd never met her in person. I woke up in bed with her because we were sharing a bed at home. And now, we're like really good friends. And that was like a huge step outside of my comfort zone. And for those first 2 events for me, I wasn't out drinking. I was pumping in my hotel room, sleeping. Like it took me everything to be at those events. And at the time I wasn't making a lot with Epicure. I was a brand new leader. So it was really an investment in myself, but also my future. And I know, like, hearing those stories, like, yes, it made a difference in your business, but also like you changed that day when you heard that story, right?
For sure.
So my next question for you is, you have a very full life. You have 3 kids, you have a husband, you have lots of activities, you guys do lots of things. So why is it that you make the training and the events a priority for you? And how do you make them possible? Because as you said, you have no family, you have, how many hours are you from like a city?
I am about, in the winter, like 6 or 7 hours from an airport or a city, right? So
you're 6 or 7 hours from an airport. You have no family in town, and you have a husband who works crazy hours. So, why do you make them a priority? And how do you make it work?
Well, you know what? That was because I was the biggest excuse girl on the planet. And I was already touching on how Tara Larson, I remember telling me, just drop the excuses. If you want to grow, you can, and you'll find a way. And I really thought about it. And I was like, okay, well, I need some systems. Like I need some systems in place. Why is it okay for other people to go and travel for work when they need to? And so I didn't consider it going on a vacation, or even though I was going to see my friends, and my husband jokingly calls it spring break anytime I go anywhere. He's like, how come I only get the spring break pictures, Miranda? Like you're at a bar or something. But I scouted around town. Like there's 900 people here. There's got to be a reputable babysitter that I can get, that if I need her to or him to step up, then I can get this person. So I found someone, but just for an example of how hard it is sometimes, and I still make it work. I have Sylvie Miranda, she's our sales director for Canada. She's agreed to come to Thunder Bay to have a training for my leaders. So I was like, oh great, Thunder Bay, because she can't, how is she going to get to Hornpain or any of my other leaders? So she's flying into Hornpain or to Thunder Bay tomorrow, actually, or Saturday. So I have a babysitter coming Saturday morning, and I'm paying her around the clock, $7 an hour for about 40 hours until my husband gets home from work. And yeah, I'm doing that. I just had to commit. I had to find a way, because you could just talk yourself out of anything. You really can. And that's what I tell people. I tell my leaders who are just looking to grow, or anyone looking to grow, is that you just need to do what it takes. You need to find a way. And I know you hear that and you're like, but I can't, or she could do that because she has a good, like a mother-in-law who can, how she can do that. Like, don't compare yourself to other people. Just figure out what you need to do and find a way around.
Absolutely. So tomorrow, is it tomorrow that you're driving 7 hours to get to, you're driving like double what it would take to, just be at the event, right?
Yeah.
So amazing. And what I find is when there's more at stake, like when you're going to an event, like my trip to Vancouver, it felt like I was going to like a third world country, because I was leaving my baby for the first time. I was like getting gas, driving at night, all these things.
Yeah.
It was like, but then I was like, I'm here, so I'm going to make the most of it. And, for myself, I'm a single mom. So childcare is always a thing for me. And for me, I have grandparents. His grandparents live like 2 hours away. So when I have something, I have to, get the grandparents on board, drop them off. Like there's always coordinating, but when you can get creative with it, you can find a way. So one of my creative things right now is my basement tenant is also when I was interviewing tenants, she happens to be a nanny. So I have like a basement tenant who also babysits. So she just comes upstairs and babysits. And my neighbors next door, their son has just started babysitting, but they're next door. So the mom is always around. So if they needed anything, she's right there. So same thing, like if you get creative with it, you can really start to find solutions. And I was saying yesterday on a training, when I moved up island, my parents were actually in Portugal for 2 months. So I had no help and I was in a new community. I hired 5 babysitters because I was doing, 8 to 12 cooking classes a month. And I was driving sometimes 4 hours to get to the cooking classes, depending on where they were. And I had networking meetings and stuff. And I sponsored 3 of the babysitters' moms over like about 6 months. So I would actually tip them with Epicure. I'd be like, oh, take home the mac and cheese. And then they're like, oh, you do Epicure. And they knew I was going to Epicure cooking classes. So you never know what the opportunities bring.
Yeah, you have to look at everyone you meet as a new person, a new potential, right? So that's awesome. I do want to mention one thing is that last year when I attended virtual conference, I am going to Orlando this year, but many, like a lot of my team and probably yours too, Benny, are taking part virtually. I treat it, when I have a virtual conference, I very much treat that as if I'm out of town at a conference. I have got babysitters before. I can't be at a conference and stay focused if I have my kids coming and asking me what is for lunch and can I do this, or he pushed me. I can't. If I have those distractions, I will lose my focus and I won't get as much out of my event, which in turn means that I won't make as much money. Like if you're not sucking everything out of that training as you can, it's not going to be as worth it. So if you can remove distractions from yourself, like remove yourself from all distractions and just zone in on that training, you will get so much more out of it for sure.
Absolutely. Same thing. If Maverick's not in school, I'll arrange it so he's with his dad that night, or he goes up to his grandparents for virtual. And for me, my executive director promotion came from a virtual event. I heard Wendy Aspen Curran talk about her promotion, and we promoted to SD at the same time. And I had all of these excuses why I wasn't ready for the next level. And she shared a couple things, like she put a little sticky note on her favorite wine and put it back there, and ordered business cards. So the next day I ordered the business cards, and I went out and bought a bottle of my favorite wine and put a sticky note on it that said, drink this to celebrate your executive director promotion. And I was like, ugh. But that came from hearing someone else at a virtual event and seeing something in them that inspired me to know that to believe that I could do it. And my promotion to executive director came at a time where I was 100% parent. I was going through a court battle, and I had just gone through one of the roughest breakups of my life. And I did it all through that. Like, I was just like, it's happening. So yeah. So virtual as well, show up and be there. So the next thing I want to ask you is 3 favorite things or experiences that you've had by either attending a training or an event.
Okay, 3 favorite things. Well, one of them is friendships. And I don't take that lightly. I think most of my best friends now are Epicure consultants because you have that in common. But at these events, even virtual, I make sure that my team, we have like a group chat that's going on during the virtual event. And the friendships that I've seen form from those chats are amazing. Like there's 3 best friends, these 3 consultants on my team who just have buddied up. They're running buddies now, all through that virtual conference. They spent that weekend chit-chatting and growing together, and that's amazing. But the friendships I've made as well, like with you, Benny, with Nancy, it's irreplaceable for sure. Like you just bond. You have that same kind of mindset and you just bond. I love that. Also the inspiring stories, like of course the actual trainings, and when you go for a training on the topic of sponsoring or booking, you get so much out of those, but more so the inspiring stories. You will cry if you attend conference. There'll be one moment at least where you'll sob, and it'll just catch you off guard and you'll be like, oh, that's my conference moment. So everyone watching this, you got to let us know when you had your conference moment and what it was, because you'll have it. Yeah, that. And also the insights. I'm like super nosy and I want to know things ahead of time. And virtual events, they let us in on stuff that the field doesn't know yet. So I think those are my favorite things about attending events for sure.
Absolutely. And the one I want to add to that is, for me, when we attended the SD virtual as well as in person, but more so actually virtual for me, because we were so kind of closed at that point, as well as the virtual conferences and the virtual leadership summit for me, it's my reminder that we're part of this huge company and what's possible. So when I'm just like doing my cooking classes, doing my VIP group, cooking in my kitchen, I'm not thinking about, oh my goodness, Miranda had this huge business here and look what she made possible. And, you don't get to see what other people are up to. I can remember my very first conference, I was a leader. I had brand new leader, had no idea what the company was or what people were doing. And I spent the entire conference just in awe. Like, I had no idea people made that kind of money in our business. And my moment was watching Jen Laurie walk across stage and accept the Sharing and Caring Award, which, coming from social services, I was like, that's the biggest award in our company? That's amazing. And the fact that she retired her husband. I don't have a husband yet, but I plan to retire him. So, just like seeing the scope and the bigness, because we sort of, when we're just kind of like, have our rose-colored glasses on and we're in our own little business or big business, but just seeing what's possible. Like, oh my gosh, Pauline Kirchhoff did that much in sales. Well, if she can do it, that means it's possible, right? So that's my other favorite thing about conference, is just like being really inspired by other people and what they're capable of and what we're capable of.
Yeah. You're like me, you probably leave conference with your next year's goals set. Like, that's what I do at gala. I watch, I'm like, okay. And I even write stuff down. I'm like, okay, I want to be on stage for that. Oh my gosh, I can't believe she did that. I've got to ask her later how she did that thing. And then, yeah, I set my goals there right at gala.
And I think the other thing for me inside of that is feeling like really a part of something bigger, like being a part of Epicure. Like, I am Epicure. So I can still remember at my second conference, Sylvie, our founder, sharing about how she started the business from the back of her station wagon, mixing spices in her kitchen. And here she is on stage, like, just such a beautiful, strong, confident woman, sharing about smashing the glass ceiling. And that was my conference moment. I was like, why can't I smash the glass ceiling? Why can't I be a mom and a businesswoman? So I just like felt really inspired by our founder.
Sylvie, real quick, Sylvie Rochette at gala on stage when she, it was my moment too, but she gave me permission to work my business as a business by saying that it's okay to miss your kids' hockey games sometimes because you have a cooking class. It's okay to put yourself first in your business. Your business is what is going to give your family everything that they can want and need. It's okay not to be there for every single part of your child's life. And I'll never forget that. And not that I miss everything. I'm there for so much, but it's okay. And that gave me permission that day. And it's like changed the way I do my business. We can go on forever.
I remember that part too. And it definitely changed things for me perspective wise, because I think as women, we think, I have to be the only thing. And that's when I was like, no, he can have a babysitter. And let me tell you, I had to book a babysitter the other night because he was like, Mom, can you like do something on Friday night so I can have Jackson babysit? So I'm like, I am like, he's like having this incredible bond with this neighbor, and he has the most extraordinary relationship with his grandparents because I traveled for work and they helped out when I was at cooking classes. And you're right, I do miss things.
Mhm.
Especially in the beginning when I was doing so many in-person cooking classes. Every spare moment I was out doing cooking classes, but that's created the opportunities that we have to bond and connect. So I think that is a great one as well.
Yeah.
And then my last question is, you have been to lots of different events and trainings and conferences. What are your tips to maximize your learning and experience while attending events, whether it's virtual or in person?
All right. So this is a good question. And if anyone has any takeaways, like I hope that this will maybe be it, because I've been to lots of conferences, like you said, and I've seen a lot of distracted people in the crowd and like on their phones and texting. And I can just tell they're like sitting through that whole training, not getting anything out of it. You're just here to say you're here. Don't be like that. I have ADHD. It's bad. Actually, some days it's really bad. And if I have to remove all distractions, I have to remove shiny things from around my desk. I have to close my door. I have to make sure that I'll go in airplane mode on my phone and absorb, have a pen and have a paper and just absorb as much as you can. You're going to have time to scroll your reels or to send messages to customers later. Like if you hear a tip on booking, you don't have to go and do it right now. You're going to miss some really good golden nuggets if you do that. So just write a to-do list. That's my next tip, is to have a conference to-do list. And what that means, of course, you have your pages of notes, but have one little notepad and number like 1, 2, 3, and have to-do lists, like things that you have taken away from conference that you want to put into place. And then at the end of the day, when you're in your hotel room, if you're getting together with friends, another tip, if you can get together with friends to make this like a real event, do it. But then you can prioritize those and you can put them into the order that you want to do things, but have a to-do list and have your notebook. Don't have distractions, and try to get together with like-minded people to really suck everything you can out of that event. I mean, $100, if you're attending virtually, $100 is a lot of money, and you want to get the most out of that. So don't waste your time that you have there.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. And I think a couple of my favorite virtual events. So when we had the virtual SD event, Laura Schultz came down from Duncan and Maverick was with his grandparents. And so we had no distractions. It was just the two of us. We were there on screen. Sometimes we had both screens because we had breakout sessions. But her and I made it our retreat. So we did face masks one night. And then one night we went out and had a really nice dinner together. And her and I were doing it together because I really like when you can share the experience and go back and forth. So whether that's having a chat with your team, I also love doing that. I think one of our first virtual conferences, we had a chat going and it was so much fun. We were just oh my gosh, did you see that? Da, 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 da. You want to interact the same way we do cooking classes. When my cooking classes are virtual, I'm always so tell me your biggest challenge in the kitchen. What are you guys having for dinner? What's the weather like where you are today? You want to interact because you're going to absorb so much more, especially if you're a learner by experience like I am. I need to share the experience with someone else. So I encourage you, whether it's a training or a conference, gather if you can. So, have another team member. And I think one of my tips as well is step out of your comfort zone. So, my very first conference, I went and shared a hotel room with 3 strangers, right? I woke up in a bed with someone I'd never actually met in person. So that would be the same thing as reaching out to team members and being hey, even if you don't know them, do you want to come book a hotel room and do conference together in your hometown? Or, do you want to set up a chat together, or do you want to go out for dinner together one night? Whatever you can do to create that community. I think that's a really special thing that we have with Epicure. So I encourage you, if there's people in your area, even, if you have to come together halfway, or, as I said, gather and have a coffee chat or something like that. I know in Victoria, I'm scheming up a few little things for us to come together. So that's one of my tips. My other tip as well is write it down. So if you have, so same thing, I have a notebook, and at the back of my notebook is ahas. I also have a to-do list. So my aha moment would be like, Doubt Dragons, Candice Trupot, Smash the Glass Ceiling, Sylvia Rochette, all these gold nuggets, write them down. That's one of them. So write it down, be present, create it so that it is an experience for you. So I had an experience where I was talking to Tara, and she was saying, Benny, if somebody had a job, you wouldn't just walk into their job and disrupt them, right? So if you were away at a conference, that's a great thing about being away is you have usually less distractions. So if you are there, how can you set it up? Even if it's that you're downstairs in a basement or, however that works for you. I know one conference, Maverick was in his bedroom. I was like, don't come out. Here's snacks. Here's everything. I came in at the end of the day and it was like a bomb had exploded in his bedroom, but I really was present for that conference. And then my last one, I think, is take three things that you're going to implement in your business. So one of the things that I struggled with at the beginning was sometimes I'd come away from an event or a training or a conference and be kind of overwhelmed. That was a lot, especially when I was going to my SD retreats, because everybody was at such a higher level. I was like, I can't do all that. That's so much stuff. It's 3 things and prioritize them. So if the one thing you're going to do is cooking classes and that's what you got, start there and then write the list and just start with a couple of things. And then the other thing I do, because I'm a very, I like to write things down. I take notes. So I'll recap conference and take them from my notebook and put them in a Google Doc. And I still refer back to those. So not just Epicure events, but I do that I did Tony Robbins a year and a half ago, and I spent $700 US to do it. So let me tell you, I was focused. And I took notes at the end because I do forget sometimes. So that's my last tip is if you're somebody who likes to hear it again, I know our CEO always says repetition is how we learn. So, maybe at the end of the day, you share your 3 biggest takeaways. You jump on a call like this with someone and you're like, hey, let's jump on at the end of each breakout session or each day. And let's recap what we learned, right?
Yeah. So smart.
So those are my tips. Any last things you want to say, Miranda?
No, I just would love, I would hate to see somebody miss out on this opportunity if they could help it. Just jump in. Don't be afraid. Just jump in and come out of your comfort zone and just do something different.
Yeah. And what would you say to someone who is on the fence, either about attending a conference or maybe a training group or a leaders day or et cetera, et cetera? What would you say to somebody who's like, I don't know if I can swing that?
Well, if it's not a hard no. So you're already humming and hawing about it. If you want any kind of growth in your business in any of those categories, like sponsoring, or you want your sales to improve, it's worth it. You've got to just jump in. You're not going to regret it. You're going to have those sessions for a limited number of time, a limited amount of time after the conference anyways. So what have you got to lose? Ask yourself that. What have you got to lose?
Absolutely. Well, I cannot wait to see you again. I don't know when it's going to be. I will be attending conference virtually. You will be in Orlando, but maybe at the end of conference, do you want to connect and see what we got out of it?
Let's do it. I would love to.
And maybe we can even you can call us one day from Orlando and
maybe you'll see me during one of the trainings.
Ooh, I would love that. Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Thanks so much, Miranda.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.